Hello everyone and welcome back to the And More Bus Videos YouTube channel. I'm And More Bus Videos, otherwise known as And More Central, depending on what day of the week and what video you are watching. And welcome back to another video in our mini-series celebrating the release of the lovely Harrogate B10 Repaint Pack released by Amethyst Studios. It's a very recent Repaint Pack release. It was one I was looking forward to. It features pretty much every single livery that the B10 Renown bus type wore in its time in Harrogate, with Harrogate and District, Blazefield Harrogate and District, Transdev, the Harrogate Bus Company, or Transdev Harrogate and District, then Transdev sort of Harrogate when they did the gold and brown livery, and then the Harrogate Bus Company, and that's where they were withdrawn a few years ago. So for this video, I was sort of debating what livery we should drive as we slowly begin a look back in time. We are going to go back to some of the more modern liveries that I can relate to soon, but I thought, what shall we have a little drive of to look back in history? And I thought something that was really iconic but didn't last that long, unsurprisingly, was the Harrogate to Leeds and Bradford International Airport livery that B10 Renown YC51LXX that was 305 wore for a short period of time for the 767 service that Transdev operated. So the route itself was, I believe, a 1 or 2 bus peak vehicle requirement. It wasn't many at all, and as you can see, around 12 times daily between Harrogate and Leeds and Bradford Airport. The route itself then got handed over to Dales and District, who used small vehicles on it, small E200s and things like that, and then it eventually got replaced by the extension initially of the 747, or I believe it was initially the 737, and then the extension of the 747 airport buses from Bradford that at the time were run by Yorkshire Tiger. Then I believe it was initially the extension of the 737 that they did, then they changed it to the 747, and now they're all numbered flyer routes. So in basics, the entire route has done full circle and is now run by Transdev again, only in the form of the flyer routes rather than the sort of Harrogate Bus Company running it. It's more based at Idle. So in fairness, it has done a full circle. It's quite funny. And in this video, as you can see, we're parked on Totnes Road in Westcountry version 3.03. So we're going to have a little drive of this bus on the 35 from Totnes Road round to Paignton Centre and all the way up to Totnes, because at the moment in this variation they're doing a few bits of work, so they've done it so that the 35 terminates at Totnes Road instead of up at Memorial Crescent. So I get the vehicle all set up. So we'll get the blind working. There we go, it froze then for a second, I got right worried. There we go, let's load it up manually, shall we? So I know it's actually going to work, there we go. So yeah, so we're doing the 35 Totnes via Berwick Pomeroy. So a little drive of the bus, see how the bus performs, and I'll tell you a little bit more about delivery and what other Transdev B10 liveries existed at the time. So, have we bus checked? Yeah, I've just looked around it externally, but we still looked at it. Bus number 305, duty number 351, service number 35. Never wants to click that. Okay, I don't know what it's doing. Let's just switch it all off again and see if we can. And in fairness, it looks like that's... Have we broken the machine? Yes, it doesn't usually stick on that. But anyway, we'll crack on with the route. So the route itself is timetabled at 35 minutes, and that includes us heading up to Memorial Crescent, spinning around there, picking up all our people, and then going over to Totnes. Very annoyed that the ticket machine has decided to just break. So in this version of the Westcountry map, the X35 doesn't exist anymore, so they've got rid of the express route, and it is merely just the 35 service. So it is just the 35 that they've got along this corridor. However, if you remember, they've now also got the 1A and the 1B Totnes local bus routes as well. So I'm going to pull in here for a brief second, see if there's something I can do with the ticket machine. I've just had a vague idea. There we go. Well, let's try and put that in again. There we go, that's better. So yeah, I thought, because obviously it didn't isolate when I switched the bus off, I thought if I take the module out, it'll do it, and it did, so that's good. So having been to Weymouth quite recently, I can relate to this area, as it does look very, very similar to Weymouth. There is some videos coming out on the Ammo Central channel very, very soon from Weymouth, so hopefully those will be something to look forward to. I don't believe the 767 ever used to pick this many people up. I think that's why Transdev gave it up. It wasn't, unfortunately, it wasn't a popular route. It just didn't have the demand back then to warrant a sole regular service. I mean, extending the 737 and then 747 up from Bradford and the airport was the thing that really saved the connection, and it still operates today. I believe it's now the A3 that it runs as. So it now runs as the A3 as part of the Flyer network. But that was the thing that really saved the Harrogate link. I mean, at the time this 767 was launched with B10s, let's think of the era at the time. I think first we're on the verge of losing the 757 airport service between Leeds and the airport. I believe they were also on the verge of losing the 737 and 747 from Bradford, because First used to run them. First ran, the airports from Bradford originated with First pretty much, and I believe just before them it was Yorkshire Ride and that kind of thing. However, the 757 that was the Leeds to airport was run by a small company called Aztec Bird that solely ran the 757 for a few years between Leeds and the airport, and then shut up shop when they lost the contract to First. At the time, First started to use some B7 hourly Eclipse Urbans on it, so they used the old 67000 all the way up to, I believe it was 670. It was, well, let me have a think. It was 67. They weren't 67000. Let's have a think. I'm trying to think what they actually were. Oh, there we go, 66700. 66700 to 66705 or 6 when you in 2003 for the 757 airport service, just as First took it over from Aztec Bird. At the time, quite funny, Aztec Bird sold 2 of their vehicles, 2 of the, I believe they were quite random vehicles, 57 and 58 that became of Arriva Yorkshire. I can't think of the name of them. Icarus, that's the one. They were Icarus buses, and the reason that Arriva Yorkshire bought them at the time, they needed some more low-floor buses on the cheap, and they bought the Icarus vehicles from Aztec Bird because they did run some step entrance variations at the time. So they took over them, they ended their lives in Dewsbury, did 57 and 58, and one of them is now in a museum, I believe, somewhere in Eastern Europe, so that's pretty cool. So then the 667s continued on the 757 for a number of years, and they then got replaced, I believe it was around 2009-ish, on the airport route by the ex-Menzies airport Scanias. That at the time it was the Huddersfield Bus Company. They traded as, because they'd just taken over Stagecoach Yorkshire's Waterloo depot in Huddersfield. They were close to acquiring K-Line as well, and they ran as a Huddersfield Bus Company. It was a Transdev enterprise. It was a couple of different shareholders as well. Was that part of Centrebus, including Arriva, who had a stake in that department of Centrebus. So they had a little share in it, and did Arriva. I mean, there was Bowers Group as well had a share in it, and the Leicester operation had a share in it, and they ran as the Huddersfield Bus Company for a short period of time until they realised, hang on a sec, it's not actually in Huddersfield, and the buses don't go anywhere near Huddersfield. So they decided quite quickly to start adding the name Centrebus onto buses, and that's where the name Centrebus was launched in Yorkshire on the 73, 74 and 757. Now, at that time that this transition was happening, that's when this 767 was running with Transdev. I do have, I must have it somewhere in the archives, an old 767 timetable, and it did have a picture, I believe, had a picture of this bus on the front. I had a picture of this bus inside somewhere, I believe, from memory. I remember when they got the timetables, because I remember the paper was like cardboard. And it wasn't over for First for a brief period after that, even though they'd lost the 757 contract, the official airport contract. They tried to continue running in competition with Huddersfield Bus Company and Centrebus. I think they were in the mindset that with it being a new company, it wasn't going to stand for long, and how wrong they were. It ended up lasting for a few years. In fairness, I mean, they lasted 4 or 5 years as Centrebus, and then Yorkshire Tiger for a number of years, and so it did quite well, in fairness. So when they tried to compete with them, they ran a one-bus peak vehicle requirement operation alongside the airport to Leeds corridor. I believe they roughly ran every hour, presumably because that's all the airport would allow them to run in competition. They didn't want a heavy service, and that would wipe out the service they were actually paying for. So they sanctioned that they could put one bus an hour into the airport. So they used to run a double-decker on it. Unfortunately, it was short-lived. Unsurprisingly, and when you've got a service running every 15 to 20 minutes that's supported by the airport, and you've got a service running 1 an hour, it's pretty obvious as to who's going to win. So and they didn't drum up much interest, unfortunately. Especially, as I say, it was First Bus as well, who, although ran pretty much entirely in the area, Didn't really win that many customers on the airport front, although the airport services are always a bit different to the rest, because even if it is a local bus operator, or be it an operator from a million miles away, people will still catch the route because they still need to get to the airport. It's not really a commute plan, it's more of a one-off trip usually to the airport. I don't know how on earth we're running nearly 5 minutes early. Unless we were supposed to sit time at Memorial Crescent. No, we just went straight round, set off at 20. I mean, possibly I've just drummed up a bit of time there because I got lucky with the lights and things, but we'll move up the time a little bit and we'll put it so that we're a couple of minutes late as well, because that way we won't have to sit around anywhere. As I understand, a video where you sit around places is not the most interesting, so to speak. Although in fairness as well, it's not really fair when you've got a 35-minute route end to end and you end up about 5 or 10 minutes early. It kind of doesn't showcase the realism of an actual 35-minute long route, because you sold this 35-minute route and it isn't. It in fact is, if you keep driving at a steady pace and with the relatively realistic passenger numbers, you're actually only driving for about 25. So, looking at the interior, I believe that these did have headrests on them. These back seats here didn't usually have them, although it did vary with some vehicles. But the rest did have headrests. I mean, I understand why they've chosen this variation of B10, because it's just a bit more realistic with the lights and bits and bobs. I mean, in fairness, though, I think the main thing that went for with these was the machine. Although even then, I do say all of that, and it is all set VAR. So if the machine's set VAR as well, although I don't know if it is, I think the machine might be stuck with specific vehicle types. I think so. That might be the main appeal for using this variation. So otherwise, if it wasn't that, I'd use the P&R2s because you can change the lights on them, as I believe we've already seen. So you can change the lights on them, and you've got the actual headrests as well. A realistic staple diet for the transdev Renowns. Well, let's see how much of this route I actually remember, because I've sort of started driving without arrows. So let's see how far we get without me needing them. Let's see how well it does along here. So I don't believe I ever saw the 767 livery in person, unfortunately. That was a shame, as it would have been quite nice to see in person. It was a livery I did like as well. So it was a shame I never got to see it in person. And I remember seeing plenty of photos of it, because it was a totally new livery at the time. So it wasn't just Harrogate that dabbled with an airport route. Unlike Harrogate, York had an airport route for a fair bit of time, but unfortunately that one didn't get saved. That one kind of just stopped running. Routes running out of York to sort of places have never been that regular. I mean, the airport route, for example, and also the Bramham Park when they do Leeds Festival shuttles. Although you get a regular service from Leeds, even though York is situated more on the East Coast Main Line, and possibly has more of the sort of Scottish connection and things like that than Leeds does. The Leeds Festival shuttles from York only run two out of all the festival days, so they're not actually a regular route. Meanwhile, the Leeds to Leeds Fest services run daily, so it's quite interesting when you look at that perspective as well. They just, for some reason, even though the railway geography of York is really, really good, the bus service connections out rurally have just never been on point, unfortunately. So the airport service was started, they'd had odd doubles in the past, but the main one was when first started running it in, I believe, the early 2000s, possibly just before this service started running, I think. And they named it the Air Coach. Yes, Air Coach still runs in Ireland. It still runs on all the, and it still has all the 700 series services. So Air Coach also run all of the car park shuttles at Dublin Airport as well, using bendy buses, brand new B8 Harley Evoras that they've just got, as well as a host of other vehicles that they've got. I believe when I was last up there was at least one X-Greater Manchester B7 Harley Eclipse Urban running around that I got quite excited over. Let's see where the lighting is, as I absolutely have no idea. Oh, it's behind us. Okay, that's not much use for screenshot. But it was quite interesting when they launched it, because they launched it as Air Coach, so it was an Air Coach service. It used old Plaxton Premier coaches, I believe, and it ran, was it the 787, I think it was. Sure, it was the 787. I know initially at one point it didn't have a number, they kept changing it. It didn't have a number at one point, and I'm quite certain it was the 787, I'm sure it was. Let me know in the comments below if you remember it a bit more than I do. 787, I think it ran as. I'm sure it did. Or at least there was a service at some point that went into the airport that was 787. And they only ran it for a bit, and unfortunately it was withdrawn due to low passenger usage. That was quite surprising. And that's what's always surprised me with York, because it is a tourist hotspot. People do travel from around the world to visit York. However, for some reason, most people just don't travel into Leeds and Bradford Airport, whether that's down to the name of Leeds and Bradford Airport, or just that people don't bother travelling locally, but they just don't tend to travel up to the airport itself. So there we go. I didn't want to drop down to 22 early because I just lose all my power up the hill. So I do think a lot of it as well with York as well is York is one of the tourist spots that you stereotypically visit. So it's on par, I would argue, with Stonehenge. We've seen sort of Houses of Parliament and things like that. So I would also partially put that down to it, because I would imagine quite a lot of people who go to York, not everyone, but quite a lot, will actually be London-based for the week. So they'll be based in London for the week. They'll probably do a day at Stonehenge. They'll do an overnight stay potentially in York. Or they'll catch the train up and do a return trip on the train. So so that's possibly why you don't get that many people, in fairness, because I imagine a lot of them actually have it as part of their sort of tourist week itinerary. I'd like you to move because I'm actually going to take it wide slightly just so I can get a nice screenshot. Because I think that looks rather nice. And it looks a bit orchestrated, but it looks rather nice. In fairness, for these videos, I do really like this mini-series. I do really like that screenshot angle. So you've all seen most of the videos have that screenshot angle because I like showcasing the repaint. Because the whole point of us driving these repaints is to showcase off the repaint and talk about it. And it's quite nice from the offset to actually showcase the repaint and what have. So it's also still quite nice seeing all of the old branding on it. Just to think back in the day, it's got to be out of... Inflation's happened everywhere. The one thing that's quite funny at the moment is with the government scheme, the Harrogate to Leeds and Bradford Airport is just £2 instead of £4.50. So it's quite weird looking back at time and going, hang on a sec, that used to be more expensive. Very, very strange dynamic. Although £4.50 was quite expensive even back then when this service was launched. Although I would imagine that it's inflated airport bus prices and stuff like that. Always seems to be the case where some airport buses are just mega money. Speaking of airport buses, I do need to go back to Ireland and sample the air coach. I really do. I really wouldn't mind, seeing we've been talking about it all. I wouldn't mind actually going back and sampling the air coach to places like Cork and across other side of Ireland. So it's a perfect way to do it. Is air coach or a similar service like Bus Arrayan or something like that. Now that's the proper sound to remember. That chirp. That should be the indicator chirp. That's like my childhood going round between Keighley and Howarth on B10s, between Leeds and Wetherby on B10s. That is the staple indicator chirp sound, is that. Properly good memories. I still love, instead of FedEx, it's Fed Up. That's not dread to think how early we actually are now again. Because I don't know what's happened since the update, but I just seem to be able to, even though it's identical route, I just seem to be able to do the 35 a bit quicker. Yeah, I mean, we're a couple of minutes early again. I just seem to be able to achieve the route a bit quicker than I used to. I don't know if it's just a mental thing, like mentally I can do it a bit quicker, or physically or what, but it just seems like the route doesn't feel as long anymore. It just doesn't. I mean, that might be how many times I've driven it, but it just doesn't feel as long anymore. No, it should be that sound. Definitely should be that sound. Although I do also remember childhood memories of sitting, let's see if we can get a camera view, sitting where that guy is there, on the old maquette seats and and what have. That was pretty cool back in the day. I mean, it is a bus stop. Okay, don't want to get off there, fair dues. Now this is always a funny bus lane. I never quite understand this. Where you basically get all the way to here and then go. And then this is the old roundabout that arguably the junction is a bit better. I mean, when we do drive the 1B service that I will be doing with the Renown, more than likely in the next video, knowing how I'm feeling, you'll notice why that right turn is a pain at the moment. You'll see that then. I won't spoil it for now. Again, still remember all that maquette. It's really nice to just have it in the game, because even though most of these buses have now gone, it's just quite nice to be able to reminisce. And no hints or anything, but a Jonathan Keefler repaint pack would also be quite nice. I wouldn't mind some light blue and white livery, because I remember when we were at Showbus last September, the preserved Keighley District B10 was there, and in the old blue and white livery brought back some immense memories. It looked absolutely phenomenal. I do think as well quite a lot of people now get off at the bus station. I think that's another update in 3.03, where people do actually get off at the bus station, because it pretty much used to be everybody used to clear at that bus stop, but now I think people do start alighting at the bus station a bit more. Even though I have driven this route since it got updated, I honestly cannot remember. Pretty sure as well I might have driven it on camera, and I still can't remember. Oh, we did okay, apart from being too early and too late at the bus stop. We actually did okay. Let's put our replacement up. I also don't like the horn on this, it's not what I remember. Let's stop doing that, can we? So there we go. So that was the lovely 35 bus route from Paignton, Totnes Road, round to Paignton Centre and all the way over to Totnes. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion as well. It was really, really nice to have a chat about the old airport services and rejig my memory on them as well, because it has been a while since I've had the pleasure of doing research into it and having a chat about it. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember that the Repaint pack is free to download. There is a link in the description below. The map itself is also a free to download map, and the bus is a payware that you can get off the Studio Polygon website. So I do recommend the Repaint pack. It is absolutely amazing. Once again, hats off to Amethyst Studios for doing such an amazing job. I will be continuing my mini-series as we continue to delve further back in history on these different repaints and different liveries that the vehicles had in Harrogate. And do keep sending in your repaint suggestions as well for what liveries you'd like to see on what routes and what maps. For now though, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have done, do be sure to click that like button so that more people can find it and enjoy like you have. And if you haven't already, do be sure to subscribe to the And More Bus Videos YouTube channel for more content like this from the simulation section, as well as an archive of over 5,000 backseated engine-focused public transport videos from the UK and beyond. With buses, trams, trains and more, there's something on there for everyone with additional 21 videos added to the archive per week. There is also archive videos of, I believe, this exact vehicle, 305, when it was... and sort of on its red Harrogate bus company here, and there's also videos of the sister buses if for whatever reason that one isn't there. So once again though, I would like to thank you all for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this one, and I will see you all in the next video, mate. Goodbye for now. Bye.